Hello, everybody. My name is Preetam Cholli. I'm calling from the United States, near Boston, Massachusetts. Before I start, I'd just like to thank Girishji and Shrikantji for giving me this opportunity to speak before you all today. Some of you may know me as a Seva Fellow. I had come with Seva Sahayog for this last year, where I was working to lead a new project that was distinct in that it involved partnerships between NGOs, research institutes, and corporate social responsibility groups. So for this last year, I worked at the intersection of these three distinct types of groups to lead forward change in Pune slum communities. And I am hoping to share the insights that I gained from my experience with you today so that it might be able to set the tone for the conference and help us all start thinking about a proper framework with which to approach these issues to see what we can do to take advantage of the opportunity before us. So, as we know, the philosophy of this conference is simple. NGOs, CSRs, and research institutes all have unique potentials and capacities that together can be contributed to lead to an overall more powerful, more robust social change. It's by this unique overlap that TFS, Tech for Seva, is possible. Each of these groups lends its own unique skill sets, expertises, and exposures to help expand the potential that each group would not have had on its own. And by establishing Tech for Seva, we seek to build new partnerships with one another. Now, what do we seek out of these partnerships? Partnerships must first begin with having a mutual understanding, clarity of purpose, and a common set of expectations between different groups. Then we will need to proceed through well-defined roles, healthy communication, and assessment and reassessment to ensure that whatever objectives we identify from the beginning are met. And lastly, when we accomplish our objectives, what is the end result? We're looking for value for all of our partners and also value for the communities. So in this presentation, I'm going to go over how all this is possible. Now, in Tech for Seva, we're focusing specifically on this intersection right here. But one thing that we cannot forget, that although good intentions are essential, they are not necessarily enough. And why is that? It's because while we focus on this, we can't forget the broader context within which we operate. Each one of these organizations functions through different goals and outputs, has different resources at its disposal, different cultures of work, and faces a different types of pressure which guides the way that it works. These pressures include financial pressures, ethical pressures, and legal pressures. And these types of things, if we can't find a way to bring them together, there might be a sense of friction when we try to establish a new partnership, which might actually drive us apart and make it more difficult to affect the change that we want to accomplish. So what kind of collaboration is possible, first off? Well, NGOs and research institutes can work together in the fields of discovery, intervention, or implementation. Discovery, an example of which is that an NGO tries to affect change in a community, but it realizes there's some problem that they can't find the root of, and they need to investigate what exactly that is. A research institute can come together, and through a collaboration, they can find out what exactly the underlying phenomenon are so that NGOs can come up with strategic programs to effectively address the issues at hand. Intervention. For pilot studies or pilot programs to see how effective these NGO or research initiatives are, an intervention that pairs the potential of NGOs and research groups can lead to a more robust approach. Implementation. If a technologist or research institute wants to take a technology that could benefit the least off and apply it broadly but lacks the resources to do so, NGOs can be the best drivers for that kind of change. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the unique workflows and contexts that researchers and NGOs operate through so we can have a better sense of what processes and pressures there are. Research can operate through either basic science or applied science. Basic science proceeds through this series of defining a question, investigating through a measurable process, analyzing the findings and the outcomes, and coming up with an output, a discovery, a new technology. Then what we can do is basic science can be taken to the next step of applied science, which takes the discoveries and technologies and seeks to apply them through interventions that are measurable in the communities. Then, by assessing the impact, establishing a proof of concept, and once that proof of concept is established, taking the final output of pursuing implementation, advocacy, and policy on a broad scale. This is the typical research process. Now, what can NGOs specifically contribute to this? NGOs, being on the grassroots, are in a unique position to know what the main questions that society is facing are. What are the problems? Hands-on, what are the challenges that communities are facing? And help researchers define the important questions to drive meaningful change for society. Also, NGOs have unique community penetration that research institutes may not have. This penetration would allow for better investigation and better measurement of the effectiveness of whatever we are trying to establish in communities. NGOs can help with the application and implementation of whatever outputs we come up with. And also NGOs have advocacy power, which is unique because they operate in a network of government, non-government, and non-profit, and corporate social responsibility. Now, what do NGOs operate in? NGOs are less defined, but all of their goals are oriented towards social impact. They identify issues, develop programs and strategies, establish community partnerships, and measure impact in order to have a broad social change. This can operate in any real combination. What can research institutes contribute to this? Research institutes can help, once NGOs have identified issues, identify the causes of the issues. They can provide technological solutions to NGOs to have better programs, inform the programs in the way that they work, and also evaluate the impact of what the NGOs are doing. Is it working? Now, those are the different ways in which they work, but also there are unique organizational structures to research institutes and NGOs. This is where significant differences in the context arise from. Research institutes are nearly always standard. Not always standard, but near standard. If you go to one research group to another, they tend to follow a similar process and have a similar organizational structure. You have principal investigators, co-principal investigators, research assistants, etc. Through that, they operate through concrete workflows of well-defined hierarchy. And as a result, they have a commitment to process. NGOs, on the other hand, are highly variable. Each NGO might have a different structure, different means of operation. They have dynamic workflows because they're always in a state of flux and working in real-world nitty-gritty situations. And as a result, they have to be adaptive and flexible. So as you can see, these are very distinct differences between how NGOs and research institutes work. Also, they operate in different environments. Research institutes operate through a legal framework in which it requires an ethical review of their programs and an ethical defense of their programs to superiors and agencies. They need to follow protocols from oversight committees and get informed consent from parents, guardians, and adults, or for children from study participants. Ethical considerations for the way that research institutes operate. They need to share their outcomes with the participants. They need follow-up, education, and referrals if necessary, especially with health. NGOs, on the other hand, operate through their own legal framework, and their ethical demands are different. Community needs come as a first priority for NGOs. They advocate on behalf of communities, engage communities as partners, and aim to promote independence of the community and not dependence of the community, which is essential. Communities must always be respected, and the outcomes must directly benefit the communities. So as you can see, there's some differences here as well. Now, how can these differences lead to tensions? Research institutes, by following a very scientific process which requires consistency, quality, order, and standardization, leads them to be a little bit opposite of NGOs who, working in the messy ground realities, need to be adaptable and learn to navigate chaos. Tensions can arise between the ideal of the scientific process and the reality of working in the field. Next, research institutes have legal requirements and standard procedures which must be followed through ethical protocol. NGOs, on the other hand, have logistical challenges and demands on the community, which makes this more difficult to follow a strict, rigid protocol. It might just not be possible. So there needs to be a balance struck between research institutes and NGOs. Now, research institutes also may or may not be more distanced from the community than NGOs are. NGO roles demands intimacy and trust, and that means that they cannot compromise this kind of trust with the communities when they work with them, because that will put into jeopardy all of their other initiatives as well. So NGOs are under a unique pressure in these types of partnerships. Research institutes also, especially for basic science, for them social impact may be more of a consequence, with discovery as being the main objective. NGOs, on the other hand, pursue social impact and not discovery as the primary objective, although discovery is a part of the entire process for having the social impact. So as you can see, there's a difference in objective. They cross at certain points and pass by each other in other points. So given these tensions, what is needed in order for a partnership to be built in a healthy and productive way? Preliminary initiative of all groups involved. NGOs, CSRs, and research institutes need to take the responsibility to familiarize themselves with each other's worldviews and structures before any partnership is established. NGOs need to learn the ethical, legal, and procedural environments of research institutes. What does it take to make a publication, if that could be a potential output? And what is the ethical process through which research institutes need to operate? Research institutes also need to know the legal, ethical, procedural, and also the philosophical environment through which NGOs operate. The philosophy is essential because if you can understand why they're working and how they're working, you can better align the partnership in a way that everybody benefits. Scouting. NGOs, CSRs, and research institutes must be proactive in identifying organizations that don't only meet their needs on paper, but also meet their philosophies in real life. So that way you'll have a much smoother synergy in the way that these organizations come together. Planning. All groups from the get-go must outline the entire project trajectory before starting. This plan should include a step-by-step overview of each phase of the project, the roles and responsibilities of each group for each phase, and the outputs and endpoints that will add value to each group and the communities involved. This is essential because if you start planning as you go, it becomes much more difficult to navigate, and you'll always be debating and having discussions and trying to figure out who's responsible for what after everybody's already committed. Communication. A direct line of communication must be open between leaders of all organizations involved. These people need to have concrete understandings of the organization's unique capacities, as well as be in positions of authority or influence, because only then are they able to mold the organizational synergy in a way that best benefits the outcome that we're trying to accomplish. So that's all. Thank you very much. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to contact me at preetam.cholli@gmail.com. I'd be more than happy to answer any queries you have and give any suggestions that you may feel are necessary. I hope this offers a good framework for the rest of the conference, and I really hope this has been helpful to everybody. Please let me know if you'd like to get in touch. I'm more than happy to. Thank you all very much.